Are you ready?
No.
Tell me when.
I'm ready now. Yes, I'm ready.
Want me to hit it?
I'm ready.
Here we go.
Hit me. From the 16th Annual San Francisco Sketchfest, it's time for Succotash, the #1 award-seeking Comedy Soundcast about Comedy
Soundcast.
Yes, brought to you by Henderson's Pants, makers of Hippie, Hiphuggers, and sketchy shorts since 1907. Tonight, we are coming to you live from Piano Fight in the heart of San Francisco's Tenderloin district. Our special guests this afternoon include Wayne Federman, Cole Stratton, Paco, Romane, and our very own Will Durst. Now, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome your host, internationally recognized Comedy Soundcast Soundcaster, Marc Hershon. Take it away, Marc.
Thank you. Thank you, Bill Heywatt. Another hand for Bill Heywatt, our fine announcer. He's worked some of the finer radio stations and strip joints across this great country of ours.
You flatter me.
First of all, thank you very much for coming out on a terrible rainy day to come to our beautiful Soundcast. Give yourselves a hand for coming to Piano Fight today, middle of the afternoon. As I like to say when we do our live shows, we rarely get a big turnout, so you are more people than are usually in my car where I record my Soundcast. So thank you for coming tonight. We have a great panel of guests. We're going to bring them up in just a moment. And we're going to talk about themselves. We'll talk about their podcast. We'll talk about what they're doing. But we'll also have kind of a general roundtable about podcasts or soundcasts. If you're a regular listener of Succotash, you may know that I'm on a campaign to change the term podcast to soundcast, just because I think Apple's gotten enough of our attention and money. So why keep giving it to them by calling this thing something they don't even make anymore, since the iPod doesn't get made. All right, so enough of that political statement, and we'll talk about nothing else political. Right. Yeah. Let's start out with one of our regulars, actually our only regular contributor that we have. He is a political comedian of national note. He is a social commentator as well. Would you please welcome, with our Burst O' Durst segment, Mr. Will Durst, ladies and gentlemen.
Hey, guys.
Will
How you doing?
Hey, Will. Thanks for coming down.
Thanks for having me, man.
It's a pleasure to have you here.
Great-looking room. Good-looking crowd. Look at that.
Right? They're
Yeah.
all upright?
There's like almost 20 people here.
Yes.
Four more, we could actually say dozens of people came.
Fortunately, we could also say, since this is a soundcast, we could say there are 400 people here, but they're just not miking the audience. All right.
Yeah, let's say that.
So every
400 people. Many of them afflicted by flu.
Every episode for the last, I'm going to say, we've been going for 6 years with Succotash. I think for the last 5 years, Will has contributed his Burst O' Durst segment to our show.
Been very lucky.
I'm
Thank
very
you.
lucky.
No.
Thank you. And he has prepared a couple to do live for you this afternoon. So we're going to do one now. We'll do one a little bit later in the show. But Will, what do you have for us?
This one is thank you. This one is a goodbye to the year 2016. Hey guys, Will Durst here with the fervent hope that 2017 goes down smoother than the previous year, whose name I have totally wiped from my memory. Oh my living God, the year that shall not be named sucked like an industrial-strength vacuum cleaner designed to inhale rocks the size of North Dakota. On a major league suckage scale of 1 to 10, the last 12 months rated around 4,937. Maybe it was that extra leap day that tipped the balance into grievously heinous. But those 366 days of death and destruction and disaster and despair and ugly and horrid and atrocious and ghastly can only be tempered by the fact that we survived. Barely, and not all of us. It was to happy times what banana daiquiris are to reinforced concrete support beams, what barbed wire wrapped bats are to pantyhose, what Donald J. Trump is to calm deliberate judgment. Queen Elizabeth once referred to a particularly bad year as an annus horribilis, and this was definitely that with one of the ends removed. The kind of 52 weeks that makes you want to build a bunker in the backyard and fill it to the rim with Little Debbie snack cakes and bourbon. Maybe the whole thing was a plot by the pharmaceutical industry to sell more antidepressants. Anyhow, whatever you call the past year, good riddance to bad rubbish. Don't let the doorknob hit you in the butt on the way out. Welcome, 2017. Take your coat off. Sit down a spell. You have some awfully tiny shoes to fill. And we're counting on you to take a bit of the chill out of the air. But hey, no pressure. For Succotash, I'm Will Durst.
Will Durst, ladies and gentlemen. You can always get more Will Durst at willdurst.com.
Indeed.
And he's also tweeting at Will Durst when he remembers to. Okay.
I'm bad
so
at
we're
social
going
media.
to, before we bring up the rest of our panel, we're going to have a word from our sponsor, if you will.
Hello, friends. Bill Heywatt here to remind you that if you're going to San Francisco, be sure to wear some Henderson's pants on your ass. Welcome to 2017, the year that marks the 50th anniversary of the Summer of Love that started right here in San Francisco. At Henderson's Pants, we like to think that the spirit of free love is still alive and well, somewhere under all that judgment and fear and latex protection. Anyway, in honor of the movement that called for the end of the war in Vietnam while handing out free doses of the clap, Henderson's introduces our new Hippie Hiphuggers, inspired by a pair of bell-bottom jeans found in a cardboard box in a secondhand store in the Haight. These stylish, yet trendy lady trousers hug your hips while leaving the rest of your bottom half footloose and fancy-free, with the bottoms spelled out so wide you can hide your stash and 3 of your close friends. These are pants you'll come to love. Originally designed for Janis Joplin, Wavy Gravy, and wayward members of the Merry Pranksters, Henderson's Hippie Hiphuggers are available in the 60s. So get yourself a time machine and we'll see you at Henderson's, makers of big boy pants and girly jumpers since 1967. And now back to Succotash.
All right, thank you. Henderson's Pants has been sponsoring Succotash since the very beginning. They have yet to actually give us any money.
Or pants.
Or pants. Let's bring up our first guest. This gentleman is housed usually in Los Angeles, California. And he was at Sketchfest yesterday, I believe, and delayed his return to the Southland so he could be here with us today. Please welcome, if you will, let me play this clip first. Please welcome, if you will, our first guest, or no, I guess you'd be our second guest, Wayne Federman. But here's a clip from his podcast, Human Conversation.
So what did you do for Thanksgiving?
Well, I had a Thanksgiving. I had a couple invites to Thanksgiving events, including yours.
Yeah. Did you choose based on IMDb scores or?
Mm-hmm. I did aggregate IMDb, most amount of credits.
Sure.
And then,
Sure.
Yeah, I had a whole chart that I put up
So
on my wall.
How is an appetite?
And then I actually have a piece of Judd Apatow. And then I had a piece of glass that I wrote a formula on.
Very nice.
You could see it backwards. You could shoot through the glass, see me writing the formula on it.
Perfect. Whose did you?
It was just a friend. It was not a show business thing at all.
Oh.
Just a friend of mine, and I love. The key to Thanksgiving is one word.
Okay. Wait. Let me guess. Gravy.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes. See, we're back.
I know you.
We are back. The key to Thanksgiving is gravy. And this is on a scale of 1 to 10, 9, 5. Like,
okay.
I guess there could be better gravy.
Sure.
But in like a pitcher, like a water pitcher.
Yeah.
Just,
Do you like the
perfect?
Do you like the more legit gravy that's like made from the turkey, or do you like?
No, they did the draining of the turkey, turkey drainage, right? And then they added flour and some other stuff to it to thicken it up. And I mean, just Just the thought of
Wayne
it.
Federman,
Are there
ladies
any-
and
And I'd
gentlemen.
rather
Wayne
forego the
Federman. Yeah, you want to be by the piano, so... He's not contagious. He just wants to jump down and play the piano.
No. I would like to sit next to Will Durst, but I may have to do a song later on. Thank you very much. So you get an idea. If you want to hear a meandering podcast, tune in to Human Conversation.
And where do you find it?
I get, the tunes of I. I don't want to give more information than I have to about...
iTunes. You guys are on Feral Audio, I believe.
Feral Audio is
Yeah.
our network. Guys, it's so great to look at everyone here.
All
With that-
400.
All 400 faces.
And they kind of have that look like, can I sneak out without being noticed? Like that's the vibe of this place. Like, can I just quietly get the check and get out of here?
Thank God
But
for the
thanks for
rain.
having me here. And what are your questions?
Well, first of all, how's your opus doing? Your album, your comedy album. Wayne last year released a fabulous collection of his comedy through 3 decades.
I had never released a comedy. How many albums do you have, Will?
5.
5. See, I had never released a comedy.
come?
album. Yeah. Honestly, no one had asked. No one had.
No one asked me either way.
I literally expected somebody from Warner Brothers to come, hey, would you like to be? No, nothing. And then at one point, it was just, I never did like an hour. Anyway, so I went back and got all the old recordings from 1984 to 2015, digitized them, cleaned them up, and put them on something called the Chronicles of Federman.
Oh, cool.
Everyone, I could tell by the round of applause, everyone knows the album. It was a big success, and it landed on a couple top 10 lists.
What was the 84 stuff like?
The very first joke was about the 84 Olympics.
Oh, no kid.
Yeah, it was something along the lines of, hey, the Olympics are going to be in Los Angeles this year, which is not the best place to have athletic competition. It's like runners take your mark, get set, just go when you feel the energy's right. Because at that time, LA was known as a kind of a laid-back, now it's known as a cutthroat show business town. But am I wrong about that?
No.
But there was a time when LA was
Yeah,
Hot
absolutely.
tubs and peacock feathers and stuff.
yeah, or green
Sprouts.
grass, yeah.
So, Wayne, on the podcast website for Human Conversations,
Yes.
it's intimated that the clip that just came from was perhaps the last
Might be the
episode.
last one. So
And
thanks
that-
for plugging something that's
Well, we
in the
actually
past.
have a special segment on the show that we do.
It's called podcast.
Yes, the podcast graveyard.
Oh,
So,
really?
Yeah. We've as
You couldn't just say podcast graveyard.
no.
You had to go through all of that, where people couldn't quite understand what that guy was
Yeah,
saying.
that's right. That's
and
right.
then,
Yeah.
and then repeat it so everyone knew what the joke
That's
was.
right.
All right.
Yeah. But anyway, so
Yes. It's in the
it's an
Soundcast graveyard.
That's right, the Soundcast graveyard.
Sorry to correct you, but you
that's
brought
all
it up.
That's right. But what was the run of the show like for you? I mean, I assumed you enjoyed it.
Well, maybe.
Again, it's
yeah,
an
I
assumption.
did. I did. It was called Human Conversation. It was our big tweak was we weren't allowed to look at a computer or a cell phone or anything during the 55 minutes we spoke. And she was 25 years younger than I was. She was married. I was in my 50. I was like 55 when I started, single. So it was like a great cultural divide. She's very artistic, and let me give you an example. She bought something called an intention candle. Have you ever heard of that? No. Does anyone know what that is? An intention candle. It's like, generosity. I'm not sure what it was, but you light it and you're supposed to feel. But that's what she's into, like very.
What's her name?
Erin McGathy. And she ended up actually moving to Ireland. So I guess she loved doing
Was
the
that her
podcast.
intention?
Was that,
Yeah,
was
that
that
was her, thank you. That was her intention. Nice. So,
She was generously offered a cabin in Galloway.
so it was great. It was great. We had about 12,000 listeners a week from all over the world. Yeah, it was very successful, and I was as shocked as anyone. Because when I hear my voice, it's when you hear your voice, it's annoying. It's annoying and whiny.
One
right?
of the features I like about the show is the next episode you would have corrections for all the stuff
Right.
you got wrong in the show before because you wouldn't fact check anything.
Right.
And so it's actually really interesting.
And some people would listen to the series backwards, and so you would get a preview of what's coming on the next week. Guys, are any of you
Brilliant.
following this? Is this interesting?
And you stopped doing it?
Well, she moved away. And I won't do it.
You
Skype.
won't replace her?
No. One, I won't replace her. And two, I don't want to Skype because there's.
Yeah.
And I think you.
No,
would-
live. Yeah.
Yeah.
For comedy. Yeah.
Thank
if you're
you.
trying to get facts down, no, you can do anything.
There's just like micro timing involved with conversation that you can't do it over the lines. Yeah.
Are there any other concepts for Soundcast you would like to do?
Oh, I've been thinking about it because the Feral Auto wants me to do something for some reason, and
It's those 12,000 listeners.
I just feel like it's so saturated, very much like Sutter Street right now. It's a local reference, people.
No expense spared. Amazing.
Van Ness, isn't there a Van Ness?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Laguna. These are all places I walked. I have not come up with a concept yet. I haven't come.
How many soundcasts are you dipping into?
Well, there are over 100,000 comedy soundcasts alone. Literally over, and more.
100,000.
Yes, and there are over 300,000 that are devoted to all sorts of subjects, everything from gardening to politics to cooking.
So there's over 300,000. This is
That's
why I'm saying I need a very specific
Yes.
thing to
Yeah, it's a little bit
break
difficult
in.
to break through. Exactly.
Break in.
How about
But I love
numerology?
doing human conversation. It was a blast. It was a blast, and we got art from people, and it was very interesting. I found it a very intimate form of communication because you're right in someone's ear, almost like the Khan. You remember the Wrath of Khan?
Yeah.
It's almost that level.
Wow.
Sorry, I want Star Trek on you
nice,
people.
Nice deep pull. I like it. Did it inform doing the podcast? Did it inform your
I
comedy?
like how serious you get when you ask these questions. Go ahead.
Did it inform your comedy at all? Having that interaction with another person on stage to do anything in terms of the way you normally approach
Not
your
really,
comedy?
Mark. It was like a different muscle. It was a different muscle completely.
Thank you. I like how serious you got when
true.
you answered me. That was
It
nice.
is true.
Yeah, I'm trying to.
It's a different voice.
Of course. But let me just say, I know I'm gushing over here, but to be sitting on the same stage with Will Durst is just a great thrill for me. So he's an incredible dude, and
I mean,
no money.
between the two of us,
Yeah.
you and I, we're like survivors.
Okay, don't
Yeah.
put me in your generation. What is he doing? I'm literally 5 years younger than you. So.
Literally.
Don't even think of
Not
it.
even figuratively. I am generations younger than you.
Why would you even intimate that I was that?
Yes, but spiritually, I'm
Yeah,
much
well, you did
younger.
a movie about you and Bubbles, right?
And Johnny Steele, the fact
Did anyone
that
see
we're-
this movie? What was it called?
Absolutely.
Three
Three
Still
still
Standing.
standing. Yeah.
Yeah.
absolutely.
It's
So-
available on Amazon Prime.
That's right.
Yes.
Yeah, as of January
for
15th.
streaming. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
check it out. Yeah, it's odd. Yeah, it's about surviving in an industry where youth and talent are prerequisites. Neither of which I have.
But I will say this, and this is going to sound serious, but as someone who was like, I was like, in the 80s, I started during the what they called the comedy boom.
The boom.
And that's what I think your film was about a little bit. But I feel like I benefited from that. I was talking to my friend Andrea, the show Comedy Tonight, and I did a number of these stand-up shows. There was couple here that I met.
Good
I did
Time
one with Drake
Cafe.
Sather, and Good Times Cafe.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Okay, so I feel like, but those shows would not book any Shelley Berman, Buddy Hackett, Shecky, any of those generation comedians. So I feel like, so in no way do I feel like when I see a young comedian like, oh, they're getting a little more like attention than someone my age. I'm like, yeah, I get that's the way it always worked. I just didn't realize it at the time. Like, oh, those guys. What was the guy who did the malapropisms? What was his name? The comedian. Okay, never
Norm
mind.
Crosby?
Norm Crosby, yeah, like Norm Crosby, that kind of thing. So anyway, just sorry I got serious to talk about the history of comedy.
That's
but
all right.
There's
That's
a
all
comedy
right.
festival going on.
No, it's a sketch fest.
How's LA?
It's all right.
How's L.A.?
How's L.A. for work?
For me, it's dynamite.
Well, you know everybody. You've been there for, yeah. I mean, you grew like a vine.
I did.
Yeah.
I did a little bit. I really liked living in L.A., but I'm from Florida, by the way. I don't want to brag. I'm from Florida, and to make it worse, I don't know if you know this, I'm from the most politically incorrect named city in the country. It's called Plantation, Florida. And people think I'm making it up. It's not like, oh, I'm from concentration camp, New Jersey. It's a real place. It's a real place. And to make it worse, I went to South Plantation High. I was in the less progressive part of Plantation.
There's a North Plantation
There's
High?
a North,
Really?
North Plantation.
That must have been very schizophrenic. Yeah.
So no, I'm not from like like a big city or anything like that. So L.A. is really fun for me. But thanks for having me. This is
Absolutely.
great.
Why don't we bring up our next,
Let's get Cole
our
up here
next
already.
podcaster or soundcaster or comedian. I'm going to play the clip first.
I think
and then
one
we'll
of the
talk
things
about
that this documentary does really well is that it makes you really fucking wish that movie had happened.
Exactly.
You know, like the reenactment stuff they kind of do, the animation they do, and then the archival footage, and obviously the interviews with Burton and Kevin Smith.
Yeah, I mean, I would like to see what they would have done, but I feel like Tim Burton fell off around Planet of the Apes for me.
I liked Big Fish though.
Yeah,
I never saw that.
Big Fish is a
good.
really
Okay.
good movie, and
Yeah.
to me, that's his last good.
Okay.
movie.
Yeah.
Planet of the Apes was dog shit.
Yeah, like that was like when they were like, "Oh, you shouldn't be doing these kinds of big
Right.
things anymore," or like maybe that's not the way
Yeah.
to think about it. But I mean, this also reminds me of. Did you see the Terry Gilliam the movie about what him and Johnny Depp trying to make
Yeah.
Man of La Mancha?
Yeah, that's
Is that
great.
called Man of La Mancha? Is that
Yeah.
the name of it? That also reminded me of this. I mean, they actually did filming in that.
Yeah, they
but
did.
there was just so many.
All right, Paco Romane, ladies and gentlemen, co-host of the Sup Doc
Come on in,
podcast.
Paco.
Come on in. Welcome.
Nice to see you, sir.
Glad to have you. Take a seat.
I will. Thank you.
Paco, thank you for being here today.
Thank you.
Were you talking smack about Tim Burton?
Hell yeah, I was talking smack.
Why?
You know how I roll.
What did you hate? What did you hate?
Some of his last movies. They sucked.
Oh, the second Alice movie?
Yeah, it's horrible. It just seems like now he just, he calls up Johnny Depp and he's
Yeah.
like, "You want to make some money? More money, Deppy?" I think
But
he
this
calls
was
him
the
Deppy.
most recent episode of the podcast, right, that this clip was taken from, which was about the making of the Death of Superman,
Yeah,
a movie that never came out.
right.
But a guy did a documentary about how it almost came
Yes.
about. I think the plug was pulled literally the day before production or something like that.
The whole thing was doomed. You would think that something this cool would have been made easily, but there was all kinds of problems. And so I do a podcast about documentaries. It's called Sup Doc, and we have comedians come on to talk about their favorite documentaries. And this documentary is called "The Death of Superman Lives." What happened? And which is almost like if your grandma was going to say something, like what happened to it? But so the documentary is amazing, and the director talks to everybody that was involved in the making of the movie, except for Nicolas Cage. But what made it kind of a famous, what kind of made it famous, the movie, was that they released this unreleased picture of Nicolas Cage in the Superman outfit, which was a big deal.
I remember that, yeah.
And he had a mullet. Remember that? Like, because he was doing that other horrible Nicolas Cage movie where he had the mullet. So he was just trying on
Well,
the
you
Superman.
got to be much more specific than that.
Yeah, right. I don't know. It was one of the bad ones. When everyone saw the picture, they're like, "Oh, Superman was gonna have a mullet too." Everybody got mad at this picture. But yeah, it's a great documentary. You guys should check it out. And it's too bad it didn't get made because Tim Burton's a genius sometimes when he's not trying to make money. And Nicolas Cage would have made a great disaffected Superman, nonchalant Superman.
It was interesting. I actually kickstarted that
Right.
that video or the documentary, which is interesting because they have like makeup or costume tests
Right.
in the documentary with him trying on suits and different pieces of costumes.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
And didn't he get paid like $12 million not to make the movie?
Oh, I don't know about that.
I don't know. I'm pretty sure.
Oh, someone paid him $12 million.
Nicolas Cage got paid $12 million. It reminds me when Evander Holyfield got paid not to fight Mike Tyson.
Right.
You know.
Yeah.
I would have taken that gig in a minute.
Absolutely. I kind of wish people would not pay me to do comedy. I think that would be more than I get paid now to do comedy.
And I think John Peters was one of the producers, or was the producer, right?
Yes.
I believe. And he had this, there was a plot point in the movie where Superman was going to fight a giant spider.
Yes.
And of course, the movie never got made, so John Peters put the giant spider in the Wild Wild West movie, because he just wanted to have a giant spider on screen.
Right. Well, one of the best parts about this documentary is Kevin Smith was hired to write the original screenplay, and he goes on and on and on about how horrible the process was, about how much he really wanted to make this movie, and he just kept getting in problems.
What's the name of the doc?
The Death of Superman Lives. What happened?
Oh, okay.
Is the full name of the doc, but also, like, the Superman movie before that was so poorly made. Like, all Superman did was punch an island. Like, you know, and I think he cried a lot in the previous Superman movie.
Yeah.
So everybody was really excited about this one, but it never happened because just too many people got involved. And then, like, the filmmaker spends a lot of time with Tim Burton in his creepy mansion in London. So he even talks to Tim Burton. It's really good. If you guys are Superman fans or Doc fans or Tim Burton fans.
So what gave you the idea for the concept of the piece? I mean, you could talk to documentarians, which you have done before on your show, but mostly you bring comics on to talk about. So where did that sort of come from?
Well, it came from, because I'm a huge documentary fan. I sat down and watched a documentary every day. So PBS had the top 100 documentaries, and I decided every morning, instead of watching the news, I was going to watch a documentary. And it was awesome, because I have a lot of time on my hands, and I love documentaries. You guys all love documentaries? Okay, yeah.
Paco, I'm curious, do you have a particular affection for, like, historical or political or feel-good? Or any particular type of documentary, or are you omnivorous?
Well, I could be omnivorous, I suppose, if I knew what that meant. But I like quirky slice of Americana kind of documentaries. Okay. Those are my, like, you guys, did any of you guys see Finders Keepers? The latest? With the foot, yeah.
Yes, I saw that.
Those are my kind of favorite. Like,
how about the one where the kids try to make the horror movie?
Oh, American Movie?
Yeah, American Movie. That seems like that would be up your alley.
That's exactly up my alley.
Now, what about these big, like OJ Made in America 8 Hour? Do you count that?
Yeah, awesome. That was an incredible documentary series. Did you like it?
Well, I knew the ending, so it really wasn't that.
Yeah. It turns out
the dog
OJ
died.
did it. Yeah. But so I sat down and watched. I was a big documentary fan. Even in and when I went to college, the library had free. You could rent documentaries for free.
Wait, tell me this word library again. What does this mean? Library?
The library.
What are you saying? Okay.
Yeah, library.
That's a place where they have a lot of books.
Yeah, okay. Something from the past.
Library.
Something from the past.
You might write about their demise in a tweet.
we would rent a bunch of documentaries, smoke some weed, and I got really into documentaries. And so I'm such a big documentary fan. After I watched the 100 best PBS documentaries, I looked for a podcast that talked about documentaries, but not like from the filmmaker's perspective or even like a PBS perspective, but like just fans of. And I couldn't find one, so I started my own.
Nice.
Excellent. That's great. And at the same time, you're pursuing acting and comedy. Are you in San Francisco? Because I think for a while you went to L.A.
I'm in both, yeah.
Oh, you are, by metro.
Bipolar, yes. I'm in north and south. Huh? All right. Yeah, so San Francisco, L.A., back and forth, yeah.
And you regularly do a show I've certainly seen around town called the Romane Event.
You got that right, Mark.
Yeah.
Still rocking the Romane Event. Started that little thing in 2005.
Wow.
Yeah, at the Makeout Room.
12 years.
Will has been a headliner. Always great. Wayne won't do the show. I've asked him.
Will not do the show.
Asked him hundreds of times. He was just like, no, can't do it, won't do it. I don't know why you hate me so much.
No, it's the problem is it reminds me of the movie The Main Event that I hated with Barbra Streisand. Yeah. Speaking of John Peters, but go ahead.
Oh, right. Oh, nicely done. You always hated Babs. You've always...
No, I love early
like
Babs. I love early Babs.
Oh, right. The early
Especially...
Yentl?
No, what?
Yentl?
Well, that was when it started to go bad for me. But especially like What's Up, Doc, the Peter Bogdanovich movie, and obviously Funny Girl, where she won an Oscar, tied, if I'm not mistaken, with
Wow, very good.
Katharine
Good knowledge.
Hepburn,
Good knowledge.
1968. Guys, I'm a film buff.
Look at these. Star is Born. That's all I got.
All right, you know what? Let's bring up our final guest. He's may have to leave a little early because he's got another engagement. Here's a little clip from his
I'm not like the
podcast.
biggest fan of binge watching. Like that's hard for me. Like I'm a big fan of like just give me one or two at a time so I can do other things that I need to do. Versus like no, watch these all now, which a lot of people do. But one thing I did binge fairly fast, watched 2 or 3 a day for a couple days and then we're done, was Stranger Things.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which I just love. I mean, I'm a big fan of like. Whoa, your water.
It was a ghost.
I'm a big fan of like ambiance and like atmosphere and like they just nailed the early '80s and like the style of like kind of mashing up Spielberg and the Goonies and like all these kinds of different.
All right, please bring up Cole Stratton.
Probably should have been the first one to come up because he has to go. Probably should have been the first one. Come on up, Cole.
Host of the Pop My Culture podcast, also co-organizer of a little thing called the San Francisco Sketchfest.
He's the guy that puts it together. It seems so young. Seems so young to be doing something like that.
I put him up last because I was waiting for his shirt to dry.
Yeah, I know. It's actually I've dried enough. I'll stay for the end, so I don't have to leave.
Yay! Excellent.
But I need to endear myself to this audience. So Taylor Street, Divisadero, Citro Baths. All right, I'm good. Hey, thanks for having me.
Certainly. So that clip was from your most recent and final episode of Pop My Culture. Yes?
Final?
Yep, that's it.
Why?
Well, we've been doing it for a little over 6 years, and my co-host is she closed on a house in Virginia, and it's going to kind of go back and forth. And she has a 2-year-old, doesn't want to raise a kid in L.A. fully and stuff, and it just seems.
Did you guys connect because you lost your podcast the same way?
I know, right?
That's what happens.
The chick left.
And now she's moving to Ireland too.
Yeah.
Ireland takes all the podcasts.
After 213 episodes, yes?
Yep, that's correct.
And how does it feel after 6 years of producing the show?
It was bittersweet when it ended. We went out in a good way because we did a live show at the festival with Paul Tompkins, Sam Levine, and Rhett Miller. So we had a great panel of guests, and it was just a really nice way to go out. But it's weird. It still hasn't really because I had to produce this comedy festival around it. I haven't really had time to let it really sink in that I'm not doing that anymore because I've been doing it since 2010 pretty consistently. And back when we started. I mean, there was still a lot of podcasts. There wasn't 300,000 podcasts yet. But, Nerdist was about 6 months in at that point.
Yeah.
A lot. So we were kind of in, I would say, the second or third wave, kind of after, Marin was going for a long time, and Never Not Funny, and Doug Loves Movies and stuff. Comedy Bang Bang were all, pretty established. But we were kind of in that second wave, too. So it's kind of weird to not have it anymore. But I'll be working on other stuff, too, and who knows, might reboot it down the line a little bit. But...
Cole is also, I've seen he's in an improv group in Los Angeles, hilarious improver as well.
Absolutely,
Thanks,
yes.
Yeah.
Actually, that's how Cole and I met. We were an improv group, the house improv group at Cobb's Comedy Club when it was at the Cannery here in San Francisco, the Riffingtons.
Yeah, it was a good time.
Yes.
Most of the time.
Most of the time.
When you go up on a Wednesday night at about 11 p.m. after a 3-hour stand-up showcase, you're either met with this is refreshing and different, or what the fuck is going on?
Where are my car keys and my check? I would like to get out of here.
So, but it was always really fun. I love doing it.
And how's your improv group doing in L.A.?
Good. There's a bunch of different ones. I always try to get up on stage and stuff. The one that Wayne has done with us before is called Pretty Pretty Pony. We have a different guest monologist once a month, and it's a pretty successful show over at the West Side Comedy Theater in Santa Monica, where I do a lot of stuff because it's great and it's convenient to me, so I don't have to go into Hollywood all the time. But yeah, I'm just trying to stay, creative and active and stuff because the producer hat is fun. I love what we've done with this festival, and I can't believe where it's gotten all these years. But I still, in my heart, am I'm an improviser, comedian, and all those sorts of stuff. I still try to make sure I get on stage and then get off stage and make sure that people have rides and things sorted out. So a lot of hats to wear, but it's still fun.
So you probably haven't had time to really think about it. As you said, you haven't really had time to think about what it's like that the podcast is over. But do you think you'll do another podcast if a concept comes up?
Yeah, I'm actually Sam Levine, who was the first guest on Pop My Culture, and one of the last guests, and I have been talking about a couple different things that we're going to kind of work on. So one would be a sketch podcast, like an audio sketch podcast, which we would do just occasionally because it would be like a lot of work to produce.
Yeah.
And then another one that I don't want to like give away the concept of because we were still developing it. But I think one of those two or both of those things will come together in the next year sometime.
Given the similarity and the sort of demise of your podcast and Wayne's podcast, is there a chance the two of you could work together? I mean, you have a sort of a shared background.
I usually only work with married women who are 25 years younger than I am. So
It's a good strategy.
It's good.
Okay.
that's my maybe.
Yeah, that'd be fun to do something. I will say that like it was when I started Pop My Culture, I was trying to think of who I'd want to co-host it with, and at that point, most of the podcasts that I was familiar with were like, couple of white dudes get on a microphone and shoot the shit. So my idea was like, well, let's like try to do something different to stand out, find a concept. And it's not even that revolutionary. There's a ton of podcasts like ours, which is just like we just talk about pop culture, what's going on, and then other things we love, but with a special guest every episode who is far more famous than we are. That was kind of the strategy. And then Vanessa is a buddy of mine who I used to improvise with in LA, and she's got a very different energy from me. And so I thought it would be great to have a female co-host and just to be different and stand out in a different thing. Yeah. So I'm glad we did that.
Do you miss the weight of that deadline every week?
No, because we were pretty loose with it. We tried to release one every 10 days or so about 3 a month. And then about episode 60 or so, we got on to Nerdist as a podcast thing, and they were still cool about our release schedule. They never put the strategy on. But sometimes it would just be a while, like somebody would cancel or something, and I'd be like, God, it's been like 13 days, and it would start to feel like, I got to get somebody in, that kind of that. So I didn't enjoy that part of it, having to constantly book is hard, because we never did any that were just us hosting. It was always a guest or 2 or 3 on.
Wayne, what about you? Because I write a column every week, and it drives you, when you got that deadline and it's coming up. And
Well, to be honest with you, Human Conversation was a breeze to do. So there's not like you have a column, I need a concept, a thing, I have to edit. How many words is your column?
550.
So you have to have 550. See, we went in, we didn't even talk about what we were going to say. So it was.
Oh, really?
Obviously, you could tell from the clip, it's very boring and self-indulgent. By the way, that's the name of my new podcast. So I didn't have any of that pressure other than just making it to the recording studio on time. So, sorry. Did you have that pressure every week?
How about you? Do you feel that weight every week? Putting it together and stuff?
No. We pre-book. I mean, we have a lot in the can usually. We just have 2 podcast episodes a month, so we're bi-monthly. Is that what that word?
Yes.
Yeah, bi-monthly. And then we try I'll go down to LA and we'll do 5 or 6 interviews, and then we have some for a few months. So no, not too weighty.
That's what was actually kind of hard about ours is once we recorded them, we couldn't really bank them because a lot of the time we were talking about things that just happened in pop culture that week or whatever. So sometimes we could wait a couple days or whatever after we recorded it. Sometimes we would do 2 in a day or something and just space them about 5 or 6 days apart. But we just felt like any more than that, even though you can listen to them now and they're fine, but it just felt like, we got to get this out here. Because sometimes whatever we were talking about changed drastically, 6 days later, whatever was updated, and we're like, now it feels super dated.
Now it's part of the historic record.
Exactly.
If you go back and listen to it, right?
Yeah.
Frozen moment in time.
Yeah.
That episode about Friendster.
Yeah. Which one, Paco?
What about the atmosphere for soundcasts or podcasts today as it existed 3 or 5 or 10 years ago, when it was a newer thing? I mean, now there's, of course, as people are trying to find more diverse content to put out there to get listenership, there's a lot more narrative content. There's a lot more just in entertainment, drama and comedy and sketch and things like that. It isn't just a bunch of guys talking around a mic. So how is that atmosphere to be doing a podcast that's been around for a while?
You know what sucks now? What I don't like about podcasts now is really, really famous people have decided they need podcasts. And I'm kind of like, guys, come on. Can we have anything? Just leave us something. You don't need a podcast, Alec Baldwin. You don't need it. It's that kind of thing. It's just like, because everybody else has one, they started doing them. And like now, if you look at the charts, like a good half of the top comedy 100 are like super like high-profile hosts.
Yeah.
And then the little guys are like just scrapping to get good content. And then a lot of stuff is great, like the McElroy brothers and like my brother, I mean all stuff like that aren't necessarily predicated on celebrity, but so many are now. That didn't used to be the case.
Yeah, my other beef about what the content is there's a lot of radio stations that are just sort of re-releasing all of their stuff from years as podcast material now. So it's almost like, well, come on, you had your shot, and now you're just dredging up this old material. I think the number 3 or number 4 one is that, what's the NPR show about the car repair guys?
Yeah.
Click and clack?
Yeah, and they stopped doing the show like
One of them died.
Yeah.
Like when the guy died.
Yeah, they stopped 3 years ago. A guy died, and they're still cranking out the podcast every week.
Wait, one of Click and or Clack died?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Oh, shit.
This happened
He
in
didn't click
voiceover, too. Because voiceover, I mean, it used to be actors could make a living doing voiceovers, and then suddenly Michael Douglas, really, dude, you need more money, Bruce Willis and
Richard
all-
Dreyfuss.
Yeah, same thing with TV, because he used to consider slumming it to do TV.
What really happened is they were doing it more overseas. They would do it in China, or they would do it in Japan,
Yeah.
or Australia, and then they say, shit, I can do this in the United States, too. It used to have, like, bad vibe. You didn't want to do the voice work. But then they thought, well, it's going over great in Japan with me selling these corn nuts. I might as well do them in the United States and get that money, too.
Oh,
But
God,
there
I
used
wish
to
I
be-
had corn nut money.
Who doesn't want
Good
corn?
money. I used to do corn nuts, and then I lost out to Al Pacino. Fuck him.
That's a tough nut.
I'm sorry.
Hoo-ah! Corn nuts.
Yeah, who
That's
are
my
corn nuts?
Al
That
Pacino
exactly,
reference.
my point exactly.
Well, let me ask you, because you do your segment for our show. Do you have a desire to have a podcast?
Yeah, Will.
Come on, Will.
I see it as a podcast. It's just a 2-minute podcast.
Yeah, okay.
But I'm not up at I don't know how to do that. and I
Are you
haven't
curious?
Really
Do you think you could
investigated.
interview people, or you would just rather do your own take on things?
My focus is on writing new comedy jokes.
Yeah.
And that's hard, and keeping up with the time. So, yeah. But now people so desperately need to laugh.
I feel like people have been saying that a long time. No, I do. I
Yeah, but
remember
since
hearing
November
what
8th. Since November 8th, I mean, I've been doing this, and people are coming up afterwards saying, thank you. And I never,
yeah.
I got good set,
Yeah,
or I
yeah.
got nice show. I never got thank you before. I mean, it's like I'm a therapist, taking them through their post-Trump stress disorder, or something.
Well, I mean, that was like hard for us when we were planning the festival this year too, is because we announced like in November, like shortly after the election results, and like, this weekend we were like, hey, we'll just do shows, it'll be fine, whatever, no big deal, not knowing the shitstorm that was about to hit.
Yeah,
And
you were
like,
right in the middle of the inauguration, and
right, and just not having no idea if anybody would be able to come out to shows in general, because there's a lot going on this weekend, and then the worst weather ever on top of it. So yeah, there is this weird, because I did shows in LA, like comedy improv shows, like the day after the election, and a lot of people were like, should we do this? Because the mood is really weird, and we were just like, well, people want to laugh. Like if they're here, it's because they want to get away from it, or
Sure.
just get a little bit of levity, if just for an hour, So I think it's like where comedy's super invaluable, because there's a lot, especially this past year, that just bum you out constantly. Just being able to take a breath from it, and that is nothing to say that, like, because some people will be like, well, you shouldn't be able to take a break from it. You need to face it or whatever. And I think it's important to be able to, sleep at night.
Wayne,
and
what's
feel
your
okay.
Wayne? What's your experience been since the end times began?
Well, first of all, I'm not panicking like all my friends here. I'm not panicking. The thing is about comedy is everyone elevates it. We need it more than ever. And I just remember hearing that, like when I listened to old radio shows in the 40s, like now we need comedy. We need to laugh more than ever.
And war bonds.
And
Buy
in the
war bonds.
And in the 60s stuff. But I remember after 9/11, like the trauma of trauma, even more than the Trump, in my opinion. Although they're close.
Yes.
Is like you couldn't do comedy. That's how you could only do music. Like that was, and I thought that was a real eye opener. Just like, okay, I get it. Like we're the next level down, and then we got in there, and you're like, we've been doing great. But I just feel like if it's really traumatic, people are just like, just play.
I don't know.
What? Tell me.
At 9/11, Louis Black couldn't fly to Cobb's, do his gig at Cobb's.
Right.
So I took over, and people really wanted to laugh.
That next day?
And yeah, we did it on that. We started on Wednesday, the 12th.
The 12th? Oh,
yeah.
so maybe I'm wrong. So
Yeah.
once again,
no,
I'm wrong.
Yeah, but this town, San Francisco, has always thought of itself
as an enclave. Yeah.
That you got to be able to laugh at that shit.
What was that show like? I'm sorry to take over, but I'm very curious.
Please, it's a roundtable discussion.
No, now that you've done the thank you show after the Trump, was it the same vibe?
It was a little more depressed because it was focused, and we did jokes. I remember it was me and John Ross and somebody else, and we did jokes about the coverage of the event, not the event. Like I remember MSNBC had a crawl at the bottom. New York City reports no unusual looting. So apparently it was just the normal Tuesday night load, So doing jokes like that.
You.
But everybody had the same reference points because they had all watched everything all day long. So that was one of the things. And I think comedy allows you to put a handle on it. Like it's so overwhelming that you can carry it around if you can laugh at it.
But on the West Coast, it was just a little bit more removed. I'm sure comedy on the East Coast or comedy in New York must have been devastated. It would be like playing after the Beatles, only in a very bad way, to get up there, and, the Beatles, But to say, well, I'm opening I'm opening on 9/12 and 9/11 has just happened, and here I am in Manhattan. You'd be picking your jokes up off the floor.
Although Chris Rock did a joke about the people who had to jump off the World Trade Center because the fire was coming up and they had to decide how they were going to go. Right. And he did a joke about that. I mean, that's brave.
That's courage.
Yeah, that's brave.
That is courage.
And it was funny. I can't remember it, but it was funny.
We're talking about time capsuling, sort of like you listen to an old podcast as a current thing. Is that something that podcasters, you think, need to think about when they're doing their stuff? Does it need to be fresh? Does it need to be for tomorrow? Can people listen to this 5 years from now? Anybody?
I can't. Your questions are so serious. Let me think. Should a podcaster? No, you just do your show. I don't know. I'm going to pass it over to Cole.
Yeah, I guess it depends on what your concept is. If your show, I think you need a really strong hook nowadays, or you'll just get lost in the sea of podcasts in general. You need a strong hook, and you need good production value. Yeah. And it doesn't have to be amazing production value. You can have a podcast sound good just with a microphone, a simple board, and feeding into GarageBand. That's how we've done my podcast for years. With a redundant recording, just in case it decides to quit, because it does that sometimes.
GarageBand crashes all the time.
All the time. It's like its thing. So as long as you do that, you'll be fine. Like, just get an angle, that whole thing. And so if your angle is that it's like the freshest thing, and you want to make sure it gets downloaded immediately, and you're like hoping it'll chart immediately, that's great. If your whole thing is a little more evergreen, that's cool too. I think what I like about my show all these years is it's both. I feel like the first 10 to 15 minutes of the show tends to be a little more topical, and then the rest tends to be more about our guest's career and work and stuff, and then it gets really silly in the last third with some silly games and other things too. So I think it kind of works, even if we're talking about something like Fuller House for a little while that you could care. You didn't even care then when we were talking about it, especially after it's been out for a few months. But at least, it's fine. You get through it. It's still relatively entertaining, and then the evergreen stuff holds up.
On my podcast, we start with the idea that no one's going to listen, and it works from that point.
Okay.
Never disappointed.
Yeah, exactly.
One other thing I've been thinking about where podcasts are going is the idea that there's been more and more over the last couple of years podcast networks. It started with like Nerdist and Feral Audio, things like that. But now some of the bigger players are getting involved in doing this. And there's very specific things like Gimlet Media, which is just designed from the ground up to be a podcast network, and very serious about it, too.
I love it.
So I'm just wondering, do you think there's going to be a time where podcasts are going to get basically taken over by sort of big corporation as opposed to being a place for, because when radio first started, everyone had radio stations. I mean, there was a time where you could have a radio station in your basement. You could only broadcast maybe 3 blocks. You didn't have much power, but everyone had these little radio stations. And then as the FCC started slicing and dicing the bandwidth, the only people that could afford it were these corporations. So I'm wondering, is there a time that any of us could kind of look forward and go, yeah, that might happen to what we're trying to do?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think it has in a lot of ways. But, I mean, I always think back, because I used to listen to a lot of radio, you know, when I lived in San Francisco for all those years, I listened to Live 105 all the time. And then they got bought by Clear Channel or whatever. And then it became like the Nickelback show. And then I was like, fuck this forever. But, and I think that will happen to some of the podcast content. But I think the good stuff will always find you. I think that there's, especially since algorithms and search engines are so complex now, whatever it is you're into, you can find. And so whether it's put out by a massive, you know, outlet or a network, or it's just a little thing, if iTunes picks it up or whatever, you can find it if you search for it.
I think we'll be hearing like the Nabisco Power Hour podcast, you know, channel at some point. Coca-Cola is gonna be involved or something, you know. I mean, it's just how it happens. People are going to see it and be like, there's a potential to make some money here, so we're just going to do a power grab. But there will always be like the independents that are doing shit in their basement, in their garage, or their attic, you know, that kind of stuff.
I just hope that we get more white guys to talk about podcasting, if it's possible. If we can possibly do that. Because I want to hear just a different view than what we're hearing up here. Is there a white person that could tell us what you think about podcasting? A male, particularly.
I couldn't get the diversity hotline to work. I tried. I put the call out, and you guys showed up. So what can I say? I mean, we can only do so much. I don't want to change things too much, but you were talking about playing some piano a little earlier.
Well, they wanted to do a song. Do you want to do that?
Oh, yes. I'd love to do our little song that we've worked out, ladies and gentlemen. That'd be great.
Let's hear that.
Bill Heywatt, everybody.
Bill Heywatt, accompanied by Wayne Federman.
Broken glass everywhere. People pissing on the stage. You know they... Oh, I'm sorry. Wrong one. His hands are tiny, but still pretty wide. Perfect for grabbing his mail order bride. But first he's taken our land for a ride. That's why the president's a Trump. Doesn't like brown folks or homos or Jews, won't stand for people opposing his views, loves to read Breitbart, why bother with truth? That's why the president's a Trump. He smells that alt-right wind in the air. What does he care? That smile, Sieg Heil, hates California. That granola dump. That's why the president is a Trump. Won't book the White House. His tower is fine. Not scared of ISIS, he's gonna kick them in the behind. Loves red straight Christians who fell for his lie. That's why the president's a Trump. No jail for Clinton, she's suffered enough. Coffee with Putin, they're gonna chat off the cuff. Hey, you've read his tweets, so you know that guy's tough. That's why the president's a Trump. Take me to the B section. He likes to be there, wearing the crown, practice his frown, be great, can't wait. His university was just in a slump. That's why the president, that's why the president, that's why the president's a Trump.
Wayne Federman.
Bill Heywatt, Wayne
Thank you very much.
Federman.
Hey,
Lovely.
you heard it first. All right. God bless you.
Do one about Truman.
You guys really nailed
Who
Jimmy
needs
Carter
that
there.
fucking truth?
I didn't know we were
Truth is
supposed
just
to prepare a
name.
song.
Oh, you don't?
I didn't prepare.
Okay, 'cause, well, you're up next.
Shit.
Wayne, get back on the keys and let's see what Paco's
gotta be
got.
about
Thank you, Wayne. That was a real privilege, man. Thanks,
That
guys.
was nice. That was real nice. Wayne's got that left hand going.
Great job, William.
Is that Cole Porter? Is that Cole Porter right there?
Sure.
I think so. I think
Why
that's
not?
a Cole Porter tune. The kids love Cole Porter.
The kids love Cole Porter. Couldn't get any whiter.
My parents sure did.
Of course.
Since my name is Cole. Never mind.
How long have you been playing the piano?
What?
You're good. You're
I
very
just
good.
started. Just started.
Oh, it's very
yesterday.
nice.
Just started yesterday.
Ah, it's
He
awesome.
learned on a podcast. He learned a piano playing podcast.
Do you guys want to take some questions from the audience?
Yes,
Hell
from
yeah,
the
we
audience.
do.
Yes, let's
All right,
do it.
cool. We don't have
Guys, line up to the microphones.
Can we get these people?
Guys in the balcony, if you want to come down, you
Guys,
can
one
come.
at a time. Some
We'll
order.
just, since we don't have a mic out there, I'll repeat it so people can hear on the actual podcast broadcast. But anybody have a question for any of our guests?
This is the sad part.
This is
It's all right if you
nobody
don't.
does.
It's unexpected. We were sprung it on you. You can think about it.
Bueller?
Get back to you later. Anybody? Questions?
Bueller?
I've got a question. Stranger Things.
Yeah.
Stranger Things.
Have you seen it?
Winona Ryder, can she act? I mean, Altie just seemed to just flutter her hands a great deal. I didn't like her.
She's the only one on the show acting, in my opinion.
You just see her acting.
Like, she's like
working,
going crazy.
she's
and,
working
yeah.
very,
But, I
very
mean,
hard. I just wanted
yeah.
to know what you thought of her performance.
It's a bit over the top. I mean, but your character's like completely unstrung, so that's kind of hard to do, I think. But
There's
yeah, I think
nowhere to
she's-
go after you've turned it up to 11. There's nowhere to go.
Yeah, but you're an actor, Bill. I mean, you know, sometimes it's not always the actor's choice. The director is telling you to do that shit. You know?
Yes, I always do exactly what my director says. I have no pride at all. Make it big. I say, okay, I'll make it big, sir.
Any other questions from the cast?
No, that's all right.
I do have a question. I have a
Yeah.
question. It has nothing to do with, but it's about the documentary podcast. Do you have a favorite documentary, Cole? And then I'm going to move right
There, it's a good question, Wayne.
No?
I do.
Yes,
My favorite is Trekkies. I don't know if anybody's ever seen that.
Trek.
I tend to like the really silly documentaries that, like I love American Movie too. That one you mentioned, cool, Vinay. It just get back. Trekkies, just like I laughed as hard as anything I've ever seen in my life when I saw it for the first time. That's my favorite, I think.
And Trekkies is about a Star Trek convention. The
Right.
people who go to Star Trek conventions, right?
What about you, Mr. Durst?
Three Still Standing. It's a film about three
fair.
comedians. And Harlan County, USA.
Oh, yeah.
that's a good
Bonnie, Bob, what was her name? Koppelman?
Yeah, Barbara Koppel.
Barbara Koppelman won the Oscar, 1976.
Whoa, nice.
What was there was a coal mine? No.
Armor. Yeah.
Wait, what are you saying? What are you saying? What is the name of the documentary again?
Harlan County, USA.
That's not about.
Right.
But I don't think that's about spam either.
No, it's about bringing spam into Tennessee and the problems they had getting it across state borders.
Okay, guys, this is 3 different documentaries we're talking about.
Wow.
How about you, Mark?
Mine was very similar to the spam one. It was I think it was called The Cove, the one about killing dolphins in Japan.
Oh, that was funny.
I never saw that.
So, that was a great.
Yeah, I mean it's heartbreaking. It really
Yeah, that
is.
was heartbreaking.
But I thought it was a really effectively done documentary. I like it.
I like the fake document. Have you ever seen like a fake documentary? There's one called
documentary?
Showa. Have you seen that one?
No.
Guys, seriously, that is a good joke. All right.
That's solid. I had to watch that in film school. And
You did?
Yeah. Oh boy, that's hard. It's I think 6.5 hours.
Yeah.
And it's brutal.
It's brutal. I'm sorry, guys.
Did you want to ask Bill?
I forgot San Francisco.
Do you have a favorite documentary, Mr. Heywatt?
Well, you know, one thing, there's a site, it's called Quality Information Publishers, and they have all those great educational documentaries from the 40s and 50s. But I remember Capturing the Freedmans.
Yes.
Where, you know, you start out and you're making one thing, and then you find this found footage, and it's like, oh my fucking Christ, we're not making a movie about birthday clowns. We're making a movie about child molestation because all the cool footage is already existing. So, the idea of you want to tell a story and then there's all this found footage that totally informs the direction of your project. And I thought that made it very, very special, very disturbing too, because you don't really leave the theater with a clear picture of what happened, but none of it was good, though.
No, yeah, that is really disturbing. Although I will say, not a huge turn from party clowns to child molestation.
It's not
That
a
wasn't
stretch
like,
of the imagination.
like, whoa, how is this even
Yeah.
possible? We're talking about this now.
Yeah.
You were talking about the PBS top 100 documentaries. Is that still available? Can you still go find them?
You sure can, Will. If you go to pbs.com/documentaries100php, you can. The cool thing about that page, that web page, is you can check mark. It will keep. So
A
you can
record
check
for you.
mark. Yeah, you can keep a record, and you can check.
Do you
mark
remember
each-
their number one by any chance?
Salesman.
The
Salesman.
Maisel Brothers.
Yeah, the Maisel Brothers.
That one. If you haven't seen that, this is about Bible salesmen in Florida. I'm going to say 1967 probably.
Yeah.
And it is, what is that style called? Verite, where you just follow them around?
Yeah.
It is heartbreaking.
It's awesome.
Oh,
It's
just
such a great documentary.
And they're selling Bibles it's just tremendous.
Have you guys ever done door-to-door sales stuff?
I did one day.
Oh, one day. Awesome.
One day of soap.
You're selling soap
And I
door-to-door?
had a little thing, and I had a catalog, and they were supposed to mark it off. And I walked, and they dropped us off in a car, and I had a neighborhood.
Awesome.
And I went back to the office with my little kit, and I dropped it off. And I said, I can't do this.
Was this in Milwaukee?
Yeah.
Oh, man. They don't use soap in Milwaukee. They didn't tell you that part.
It was
only
not
experience-
the best neighborhood for soap.
My only experience was band chocolate when I was in school. We had to sell
Yes.
boxes
Did
of
anyone do
chocolate.
that?
Is
Band
it World's
chocolate?
Finest? Did you sell World's Finest
I think
chocolate?
so, yeah.
The white
It was
label.
World's
Brand.
Finest.
Yeah,
World's finest chocolate.
Of course, that was the
World's
greatest
Finest
scam because, teenagers would eat half of
Right,
their
right.
Of
thing
course,
Yeah.
and have to pay for it themselves.
Or what was worse than that was magazine subscriptions that you'd have to sell for school stuff, and you'd be like,
Door to door?
yeah, either that or you just hit up your parents' friends. Like, really, you want Consumer Reports? I know you do. That kind of thing. Outside of that, though, I used to intern at the Davis Enterprise in Davis, California, after school in high school, and one of the things I had to do once a week was the question of the week, like on the street. So I would go out with a photographer, and we had to get 5 people to just answer the question of the street, but they would have to answer it, be comfortable with their photo being taken, just like a little black and white photo thing.
And the caption had to be printable.
Yeah, like whatever it was, and then we had to put like their name and like what they did for a living or whatever. Like if you could cross those off, you were done. You would think it would be easy, but sometimes it would take like 2 hours just walking around downtown Davis because one of those criteria they wouldn't be happy with. And sometimes you would get a question like, it would be super easy. You would love it. You'd be like, well, what's your movie are you looking forward to this summer? And you'd be done in 15 minutes. But then they would try to do something that what they thought was important to the community. Like, what's your opinion on Measure G, the anti-growth initiative that, like, everybody who writes letters to the editor was writing about? And you'd go out, and you would just get the blankest stares from people. And then you finally would get somebody who would give this, like, long, eloquent thing on it. And they're like, I don't want my photo taken. And then, yeah, it was, like, the worst thing ever. There were some weeks where, like, we just came back. We're like, we need to change the question. We can't get 5 people. We asked 100 people.
Did you get a byline?
I did.
Cool.
That's nice.
Oh, yeah. Intern getting a byline. That's
There it
very
is.
cool.
It was mostly that and typing letters to the editor was mostly what I did.
Did anybody ever see a copy of Grit, the nation's newspaper? Do you remember from the back of comic books you could sell Grit?
You got those with the sea monkeys.
It was with the sea monkeys, but it was
right next to the sea monkeys.
It was some sort of national
And
newspaper.
the X-ray glasses.
But I never saw an actual copy of it, so I was wondering if it actually existed.
What about horse shit? You remember horse shit? They would sell that in the back of the Free Press. It would be like sort of the alternative in the 60s. They'd read horse shit. Wow. You don't remember that?
No. Wait, we glossed over sea monkeys. Did anybody ever do those and were you as disappointed as I was?
Oh, yes.
Because they were
they're
brine
just little brine
shrimp.
shrimp.
Just brine
But
shrimp.
they're supposed to have crowns and they're supposed to have fun.
They were
smiling.
cavort. They were
None of
supposed,
that.
They were supposed to cavort and have antics.
Yeah.
Exactly.
There was not a
There's
single
a family
antic.
unit.
It was
on
a
the thing.
monarchy, too. It was-
Right.
Yeah.
I wanted to see
I
them
never
build a
read
community.
Grit, though.
I knew that was fake, and so I went for the ant farm, and it worked out great for me. They would till the soil. They would plant the corn. They were incredible, those ants.
I did a horrible thing with my ant farm. When I was a child, I did the thing you should never do. I put an alien ant. I went outside and I got a little bitty ant, and I put it inside the ant farm. And then all of a sudden it was like every other ant went batshit crazy. It's like, there's an interloper, there's an interloper. And then the other ant said, what the fuck am I doing here? And he went like the farthest corner, and he would start attacking the other bigger ants who were trying to get him. And then like one big ant died, and he said, well, it's going to be me. I've got to go in there and get that little bitty ant who's like wreaking havoc on our ant farm. And I felt awful. I thought I was just sort of playing Father Nature. And what I did is I upset the entire ecological balance of the ant farm. I felt horrible, which is why I drink now.
You were a malignant god.
I was like Ealdabaoth, the man who sinned when he believed that the power came from him and not through him. And it was a flawed world made by a flawed God. The evil Gnostic Uberlord. Oh, shit, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Thought we weren't going to talk about Trump.
I liked it.
It
I liked
happens
it
from
very
time
much.
to time. I'm sorry.
This is where I thought the conversation would go.
I thought we were going to open with that.
You know, Wayne's the subject of a
Comedy's not
documentary.
funny. People don't want to get together and laugh. They want to get together and cry.
That is true. That is true.
You interrupted.
At least I do. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
I wanted to talk briefly about Wayne's documentary. Do you want to mention that, or is that?
Yeah, I do a documentary about salesmen, but it's not Bible stuff. I don't know what documentary you're talking about. The one Jordan Brady did?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. There's one called I Am Road. There's one called I Am Comic.
Yeah.
And then there's one called I Am Road Comic, where we go to a road club, and I'm in it barely. I'm in it.
You're in it.
I'm in it a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm in it a little bit. But I wouldn't say it's my documentary.
Fair
I would.
I never saw I Am Comic. How is that?
I'm in it, so it's hard, and I'm friends
Yeah.
with the guy who directed it.
So how are you in it, Wayne?
A lot of pressure.
Good. It's pretty good. It's good. It's good. If you don't know anything about comedy, which apparently people don't, it's pretty good. It's you learn a little about, and it's a lot about Rich Scheidner. You remember Scheidner,
Yeah,
right?
Right, 'cause he was going to produce the movie, and then Jordan was having trouble finding someone.
Boy, this is inside baseball, guys. This is
Well,
the story of
Well, no, but I mean, he ended up as the focus of the film.
Yeah. It's pretty good. Rich Scheidner was a comedy boom comic cocaine addict, and he dropped out and became kind of like a writer, and he decides to try to
Get
back in, starting doing open mics. So it's sort of compelling, especially comparing to these old Johnny Carson Tonight Show footage where he's killing, and so that's the arc of the story, and then within it there's little interviews with comedians and stuff along the way.
There's a few good, or decent at least, documentaries on comedy. Like Kevin did one, Pollock did one, Miseryless Comedy.
Right.
And I always wonder when I watch those things, and especially I'm sure this, especially for Will and for you, you guys have done, I'm sure, a ton of interviews over the years, like morning radio and things like that. Mm-hmm. What are the questions you get asked the most, and which ones do you you just can't stand answering anymore?
I'll let Will go first.
I don't have any problems answering the questions. You hear the same thing. The one, how'd you get started? Who are your favorite comics today? And I always get a Pollyanna on everybody, and I try to convince, because these guys don't know, and I tell them anybody who has the balls to get up there and think that they can make people laugh out loud on purpose against their will, that it's the hardest thing in the world. I mean, stand-up comedy, we're the fighter pilots of show business. It's a man and a microphone. So I don't care. Carrot Top. I love Carrot Top. Seriously, I think anybody, because Scott is very funny. I mean, he's very smart, too. And I know he appeals to a lot, he doesn't try to be cutting edge or anything. But so I get that. I don't have any problems with it. What about you, Wayne?
I don't like when people ask me what's my least favorite question. That's the worst one. Obviously. That's the worst one. I get that all the time.
I ask the tough questions.
all the time. So what was my least favorite? There really isn't one for me, but my favorite ones are the ones I don't see coming, right? The ones where
force you to
reconsider
your whole life.
Think
and
about
career.
it a little bit.
Yeah.
Kind of brought things down for some reason.
Sorry.
Well, what happened?
That's
there?
what brought things down?
Apparently.
Not the 9/11 or the bad show.
People were still hanging in. Even the ant farm story was kind of uplifting. But
Well, are we wrapping?
we are wrapping up.
Okay.
We're wrapping up. So, Wayne, are you going to be anywhere that people can see you or?
Yes, I will tell you this. I am.
Which terminal will you be at?
I'll be at San Francisco International Airport in a couple hours. No, I'm going to be, as you know, one of my things outside doing stand-up, I act,
Yes.
and I have this deal where I'm in one scene in a movie, and then you never see me again.
What's the movie?
Well, it's first of all, that thing is called The Federman and Out, where I've done it in a number of movies, Legally Blonde, 40 Over. I don't have to list the whole thing, but anyway. But I have a new one coming out with Will Ferrell and Amy Poehler.
Oh, wow.
Why am I yelling? And Amy Poehler, called The House, which is about a couple that lose their money in Vegas and decide to open their own house because the house never loses to get their money back for their kids' tuition. I'm the dealer that breaks them in Vegas, so it's The House.
Oh, cool.
It comes out in June. At the end of June.
Very good.
Awesome.
Very good.
So that's where you can see me. Until then, nothing.
Excellent. Excellent. Cole?
This festival goes on for another week.
Okay,
and,
so you'll be around.
Yeah, I'm doing a bunch of different shows too, especially next weekend. Next Friday's competitive erotic fan fiction with Brian Cook, where I think I'm writing my piece on Hanna-Barbera's Laugh Olympics.
Okay.
That'll be interesting. And then I'm doing theme park improv. John Hamm's our monologist, so that's sold out in a second.
Nice.
And a couple other things. So yeah, sfsketchfest.com. There's a lot of awesome shows still going all the time. So come check some stuff out.
Excellent. Paco?
Next Sunday, I'm going to be right here on this stage with the live Sup Doc taping, which this almost turned into, so I'm going to use today's podcast for ours. But come back if you guys can. Next Sunday, it's free. It's part of Sketchfest. We're showing Memorial Day 2000. It's a 15-minute doc that is incredible. A lot of things burn and are on fire. And then I'll be at the Punchline in February. And then March 7th, my show at the Punchline as well. Here in town.
Excellent. And Will Durst, where will you be?
Oh, my career's over.
Get an ant farm.
Man, yeah, Trump. I don't know. I want to do a show, a little one-man show, because I can't do clubs anymore because I can't follow the giant genital jokes. So I'm going to do a show, and I think it's going to be Dr. Durst guides you through PTSD, post-Trump stress disorder. So.
Excellent.
I think that's what it's going to be.
Excellent. We're going to get out with a little clothes from our.
What about you?
Our announcer.
Where can we see you?
I'm
how
here.
do people find Succotash?
Well, succotashshow.com is he's going to give all that information.
Oh, okay.
But you can hear us. You can actually hear us on YouTube, which is weird to me because we don't do any video. But it's on YouTube. I don't know why. Let's have a hand for our guests. First of all, Wayne Federman, Cole Stratton, Paco Romane.
Awesome.
Our regular friend, Will Durst. And are you ready to get us out of here?
Yes.
I'm going to let you use Wayne's piano instead of our theme to get out on. How about that?
It goes on quite a while, Wayne. You've been listening to Succotash, the Comedy Soundcast Soundcast, with your host, Marc Hershon.
Yeah.
Special thanks to our
you.
special guests, Wayne Federman on piano, Cole Stratton on bass, Paco Romane on keyboards, and Will Durst as himself. Special thanks to the producers and crew of the San Francisco Sketchfest. Succotash is brought to you by Henderson's Pants. Find us on the web at succotashshow.com, on iTunes, on Stitcher, on the Laughable app, on SoundCloud, on Donner, on Blitzen, on our Facebook page, and now on iHeartRadio and YouTube. You can also hear us streaming and like us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter at Succotash Show. Email us at marc@succotashshow.com or call into the Succotash hotline at our toll call number 818-921-7212. You got that? Good. Under normal circumstances, Succotash is produced and engineered by Joe Paulino through the auspices of Studio P. Sausalito, the home of the hit. Our associate producer is Tyson Sainer. Our musical director is Scott Carvey, except for today where it's Wayne Federman. Our booth assistant is Kenny Durgis. Until next time, I'm your local booth announcer, Bill Heywatt, reminding you to please pass the sucker
Pastor Succotash, thank you very much. Thank you. Marc, thank you. All right then. Hey. Peace in our time.